Hello and welcome to Newsclick. We have with us today Pranjoy Guha Thakurta, who has been working on the issue of paid news and has, as a part of the Press Council subcommittee, produced a 70-page report. Pranjoy, good to have you with us again.
Thank you, Prabir, for asking me to come here.
Paid news has hit the news more in terms of the political part, but there's other part of paid news which is called private treaties, which somehow has not become so visible in this debate. Do you think that that is a threat to Indian journalism as it exists?
You are absolutely correct. You know, when you talk about corruption in the media and paid news, which is essentially you are obliterating the difference between independently produced information and information which has been paid for by somebody else. It's an advertisement, call it by any other name. Now, corruption in the media is about as old as the media. I mean, but this was confined to an individual aberration. It really started with what Bennett Coleman Company Limited and the Times of India group called Media Net. Essentially, it was individuals who wanted publicity. It could be a film producer, it could be a model, it could be an actor, and was willing to pay money to have his or her picture published or a little write-up. Now, this went beyond, social do's, models, actors, and so on and so forth. And it entered the realm of what are called private treaties. Now, you would have presumed treaties are agreements between two countries, but these are actually agreements and private agreements, not public ones, between the media organization and the companies which provide advertising or are potential advertisers. In the case of, say, this whole private treaties business, what was essentially happening, a company which was advertising in a newspaper or a television channel, instead of paying money, was paying in the form of shares. So, the company which was broadcasting this television program or publishing this newspaper had a vested interest in ensuring that that share of the price of the share of that company goes up. So it was a mutual kind of back scratching situation. So if there was something negative to be written about that particular company, it would not appear. And why? Because the company would gain if the price of that share went up. The Securities and Exchange Board of India, the market regulator, has taken note of this, written to the Press Council of India, and in fact there are some newspaper organizations, including the Mint of Hindustan Times, which have an elaborate code of how the ethics of financial journalism. Unfortunately, many publications sort of are not in the least concerned about these ethical norms.
The famous email which Sucheta Dalal made public, Rahul Joshi's email, how they'll have champions in each center coordinating with the business house, which is actually providing the as you said, the stocks in lieu of publicity, how this will all be championed within the editorial board, how all this editorial interface will set up. This seems to be really breaching completely the dividing line between news and advertisement.
You're absolutely correct. Earlier this was described as a Chinese wall, till some cynics said that the only Chinese wall left is the Great Wall of China. Traditionally, the marketing departments of newspaper organizations and media organizations, the individuals who would work there would not really have contact with those who worked in the editorial department. It was believed that the editor had the last word as far as what would appear in that newspaper as news. So with the obliteration or the blurring of the dividing line between news and advertisements, it was accompanied by a commensurate decline in the importance of the role of the editor and his or her ability to determine what content would go. And simultaneously the marketing bosses had the upper hand.
It was very interesting what you were saying, because today most people will not know, unlike 20 years back, the editors of Hindustan Times or Times of India. People are actually not even known to the larger public.
Some of them are not even designated as editors. They are described as editors of specific markets. So you have an editor Delhi market and an editor Mumbai market. So in fact, the stress is on that market. So gone unfortunately, gone are those days when these newspapers and these television channels took a certain amount of pride in saying that we provide information which is independently produced to our readers and to our viewers. Now, that the word independence almost seems to have become a dirty word in the lexicon of some of these people, because everybody knows that 90% or more of the revenues of these media organizations come from advertisers and things. But the reader or the viewer has the right to distinguish between what is independently produced news content and what is an advertisement. Even, unfortunately, even that fig leaf of a disclaimer in the form of 4 letters ADVT in minuscule type, you need a magnifying glass to go through that. Even that is now being dispensed with, and there are very few publications who do not sort of resort to such questionable means of putting out so-called news, which is actually advertising. You're no longer providing information to your readers or your viewers. You're trying to reach consumers to your advertisers. At the same time, you are claiming that this is a product like any other product. But there is a crucial difference, If you say producing potato chips, you are statutorily required on your packet to put out these are the ingredients of this package. It contains so much fat and so much salt and so much cholesterol.
And you are regulated.
Right. But in this case, in the name of freedom of expression, Article 19 of the Constitution in India, it's a free for all. You don't even disclose to the consumer of your product what is news and what is an advertisement.
It's interesting that the calculations the Andhra Union of Journalists said something like 500 crores was minted by the publishers of the newspapers in Andhra alone during the elections of 2009. Times of India Group seems to have got anything between 1,500 crores to 5,000 crores by this advertisement stock swaps, which is what they carried out. What do you think are the extent or the amounts that we are talking about?
It's very difficult to really arrive at figures because all these transactions are clandestine. There's no checks written out. There are no receipts made out. It's hard cash, which is, being transferred.
Not in the private treaties.
Not in the case of private treaties, but in the case of political paid news. In the case of private treaties, the shareholding is known, but what is not known is the fine print of the agreement, say between Pantaloon and the Times of India. Do you know, it is not in the public domain that yes, you might know that Bennett Coleman Company Limited has so many shares of Pantaloon, but you do not know whether there is something written or something maybe covert. That this also means that the newspaper concerned will not publish anything that could hurt the commercial interests.
Well, as you know, there have been, for instance, Shobha Builders case. Times of India did not identify the accident which killed 2 persons in that lift collapse. It did not identify the company, just said one construction company, while all others reported this. And Shobha Builders was a part of their private treaty agreement. So you can infer
and in fact, in the case of Pantaloon, the advertisement that was put out in the Times of India proudly proclaimed how Pantaloon had benefited immensely because of its private treaties agreement with Bennett Coleman Company Limited. In fact, if you go to the website of Bennett Coleman Company Limited, you have a long list of not just companies, but a list of endorsements by the chief executives of these companies as to how happy they are with this whole arrangement. Yes.
Do you think there is any chance the press council will take a hard look and start really acting against this?
That's again a difficult question. As a member of the Press Council of India, I have no hesitation in telling you that the current status is that the 2-member subcommittee which worked on this report on paid news, much of it was actually about political paid news. And it was really about news pertaining to candidates of who were standing for elections and how this was undermining the entire democratic process and so on and so forth. The bulk of that report, that 71-page report, is on that. Me and my colleague Srinivas Reddy, we put it together over more than a 6-month period. This report is the property of the Press Council of India, which put together a 12-member drafting committee, which is scheduled to meet on the last day of July to consider it, and the full council is scheduled to meet on the last day of July, and time will tell what form that report will take. But let me put it in as politically correct a term in a way I can. There is a section within the council, and there is a section which apparently does not want the full contents of this report to be made public. Whether they succeed or not, only time can tell.
Thank you, Pranjoy, for coming over to us. I think we'll have you again to discuss this issue. This issue is certainly not going away soon.
Not at all. Thank you so much, Praveer, for asking me to come and speak to you.